And now, the LSU Football Fix with Preston Guy, presented by TigerBait, starts now.
And welcome in to your LSU Football Fix. I'm Preston Guy, staff writer at TigerBait.com. Join with me as always each and every Monday night is Zack Nagy, publisher of Sports Illustrated's LSU Country. Zack, what's going on, man? Slow weekend, right?
Yeah, I mean, just sitting here trying to recover. I'm running on fumes here after the last 48 hours, but here we are. LSU's coming off of one of the biggest wins of the Brian Kelly tenure. So it's been a really, really eventful last 48 hours, but I'm excited to dive into it and talk about it a little bit more.
Fair to say, is it the second biggest win of his time here? Second biggest?
In my eyes, I would certainly say that it's the second biggest win of the Brian Kelly era. Obviously, second to that Bama game in 2022. But look, it's something. It was something special, and I've been trying to sit back and dissect what the more eventful atmosphere was. Was it that Bama 2022 game, or was it 2 days ago?
Yeah,
it's pretty close. But for me, I almost say that atmosphere might have been the best that I've been a part of, just because the lights and all the stars were out there, Justin Jefferson, Jack, et cetera. So look, big time game, and let's talk about it.
I'm gonna say 2022 Bama edges it out. I can't remember. Not that I haven't been to one that is specifically better than that. So anyways, guys, what we're going to talk about tonight, of course, we got to talk about how this is possibly a trap game for LSU. We got to talk about, Taylon Green and the troubles he can give, because he's an elite athlete, but you can tell, there's just certain moments he doesn't shine the level he needs to shine. Of course, we're going to open with some Nagy notes tonight. We're going to talk a little bit. This is kind of a touchy topic. Was it the right thing to do to storm the field? Yes or no? I've got some interesting angles that I want to throw out there. Landon Jackson, he's a beast, and he's going to be playing against his former team, so that's always a factor. I do want to touch a little bit on the framing of the Ole Miss game. I know we talked about that last week, and I really want to talk about how that played a role. I want to talk about LSU. Really, this shouldn't be news to any LSU fan, but LSU's put up a special record on Saturday night in Death Valley, and one that I think is worth LSU fans fighting for. It is an absurd record, but we're going to talk about that, add some context and details. Those who follow me on Twitter kind of probably have a little taste of what I'm talking about there. And of course, we're going to do a game prediction, but also a very fun conversation now, because I can stay with a straight face. LSU is in the playoff conversation. We're going to talk about LSU's potential path to the playoff, because, man, it is an interesting one. Every game is losable. Every game is winnable. Vanderbilt, you're not chalking them up as a free win anymore, okay? Arkansas, maybe before the season you were. Not anymore, not especially in this spot. You're not doing that. So Bama, maybe after that Georgia win, you just said, well, that's a loss. Not so sure anymore, are we? Some kinks in the armor. Definitely some kinks in the armor there. So we're going to talk all about that tonight. Before we do that, we will open with Nagy notes. But first, guys, y'all know I got to thank Celebrity Theaters for making this show possible as our title sponsor. Guys, they're locally owned and operated with locations in Baton Rouge and Ruston. For years, Celebrity Theaters has been committed to providing a total family entertainment atmosphere to its patrons. Because they're locally owned and operated, guys, you're going to be guaranteed to see a clean facility, better pricing, superior customer service, state-of-the-art technology, and of course, the Baton Rouge Arcade has an arcade with over 50 games in it. It's the largest in town, guys. They've got a bar featuring wine, beer, frozen drinks. They've got, of course, a must in 2024, the oversized leather reclining seats and a Dolby Atmos 3D sound system theater. So, with all that being said, Zack, the floor is yours.
Yeah, look, for me, there's kind of just two things that I want to hit on a little bit more right now. And for me, to start off, it's about Garrett Nussmeier's performance on Saturday night. I think a lot of people are going to sit back and discuss the shaky start that he had, and obviously it was. I mean, he threw the ball over 50 times and only completed 43% of those throws. So it was a shaky start, of course. But for me, my main takeaway on that point would just be the lack of separation from the receivers. I think Nussmeier was doing all that he could, but the lack of separation there hurt him. when it comes down to it for me, when I look at that drive, Preston, it's one of the better drives in LSU history. I mean, to convert on back-to-back fourth down conversions, a third down conversion again. I mean, it's just like when the lights were brightest, Garrett Nussmeier shined. I mean, just shined the brightest. And I don't know. All in all, when I look at just the overall body of work from Saturday night, yeah, he deserved SEC Player of the Week. But I want to ask you, how do you think a player like that kind of shakes off such a bad start and kind of just continues to move on and have the biggest performance of the biggest drive when the lights were the brightest?
I mean, absolutely, man. That's such a big takeaway. Someone commented on our video last week, our post-game show, gritty, not pretty. And that is such a good way to put it. It was an ugly game. Now, again, I do provide an excuse for him, being that so many receivers were all out. I don't think coaches really did him a favor by not using Trey'Dez Green as a slot receiver. He played 3 plays that game. One of them was a touchdown.
Right.
And by the way, on another play, he had an awesome block. So I don't see the connection as to why you're not playing Trey'Dez Green. I think coaches have to take a lot of criticism for not getting him in. I do know it's tough to work in a true freshman, but my God, how many receivers are you going to lose? So losing that many receivers is tough. So, and the receivers didn't play a great game. They really did not. Was it Aaron Anderson who had an ugly drop on a post route? Yeah, that was Aaron Anderson. Now, he redeemed himself, but not a great game played by the receiving corps, and Nussmeier overcame it, man. And there's something to be said about a guy who plays a really crummy game. Because look, after I'm done making excuses for him, I mean, he played pretty bad, right?
I mean, that's kind of like my main takeaway here is like, look, he did not play a good football game. He said that after the game. I mean, he openly said that he thought that it was the worst game of his entire career, not just obviously college-wise, but just in general. To complete only 43% of your passes and still come away with the win is something that jumps off the page to me. And the lack of playbook diversity was also a key piece here. Look, I'm not here for the running game yet. I don't think that piece of the offense has arrived just yet. I think as time goes on, it could. But for me, just to watch a one-dimensional offense and Garrett Nussmeier still get the job done over a really fierce defensive line in Ole Miss,
no.
I was super impressed. So, look, one of my Nagy's notes for today would be just talking about just the poise and discipline that Garrett Nussmeier plays with day in and day out. I've been so impressed with what he's done every single day. And then to shake off that horrible start and come in on that final 2-minute drive and put together just a gutsy performance to get in the end zone and then just loft it up to Kyron Lacey for the win in overtime. To me, it just shows a lot about the character of Nussmeier and just the play style and the player that he is as a guy, because I think he's just going to continue cruising up draft boards. I think this is a player where obviously you take the good with the bad, but you're in a quarterback class that just isn't that elite yet. Obviously, over the back end of the season, we could see if that's the case. But for me, I was just so impressed with what he's been doing so far, and he showcased that on full display on Saturday night. And then the second thing that I want to hit on before, hand the floor back off is the storming of the field. Look, you and I are going to get into that a little bit more towards the end of the show. But for me, I think from a fan perspective, I understand why people want to save that for the bigger games and not Ole Miss per se, because a lot of people want to sit back and discredit Ole Miss, and I completely understand that. But at the end of the day, I think it's such an important piece to the recruiting game to where you have 50-plus recruits on the sidelines, 50-plus recruits in the stands.
Such a good argument.
And to allow those kids to go on the field and experience something like that, I feel like it's such a change of pace because not a lot of guys get to experience something like that. And when you have 5 stars like Blaine Bradford, Lamar Brown, et cetera, there and getting to check something
Caleb
like
Cunningham.
that, Damian Shanklin, who's an LSU commit, the number 1 player in Indiana, I think that might have been one of his first LSU games he's ever been to. And to be able to storm the field for me is such an experience for a guy like that. So, look, I understand the fan perspective where you sit back and talk crap about storming the field in a game that might not have deserved that. But for me, just from a recruiting tactic and a recruiting perspective, I think that $250K fine is going to pay dividends in the long haul.
Let me tell you something. I talked to Caleb Cunningham today. Of course, we're talking about the 5-star receiver commit to Bama. He was very vocal. He said, it's still Roll Tide, baby. But one thing he told me that I actually haven't put together in a story yet, so this is going to be the first time I think anybody's heard it. He said LSU's his top backup option. If anything goes wrong with Bama, it's LSU. Okay? And I think that's a pretty big deal. for a 5-star guy like that. And he was one of the ones he said the atmosphere is second to none. That's a Bama commit. And by the way, a guy who's still not only saying he's committed to Bama, but also telling me roll tide while he does it. I mean, that's a lot. So it's a great argument talking about the recruits and kids, the experience that they get to have. And I promise you 100% of the recruits thinks it's cool. There's not a single recruit who's out there who's like, well, if you storm the field, that's because you didn't expect to win. That's an old man take. And, a lot of these takes, we talk about like who's the real DBU or
Right.
who's the real wide receiver you. And, us 40-year-old white men, we're sitting here talking about it. Well, if you look at the data here, this is what it says. And the reality is what matters in this argument, it's none of our opinions. It's the opinions of these kids, these recruits, the ones who, their decisions define who's going to be good in college football next year, right?
The ones that are going to help create the future of DBU.
Right.
Like obviously, if we want to debate it, like in the past, we can, but these guys are going to help pave the way for the future. So for me, yes, storming the field is something that obviously should be cherished. But I think a game like Saturday night in Death Valley, the 100-year anniversary, I think it's more than understood to do something like that. I thought it was fantastic, and talked to a couple of recruits, and they said the exact same thing. So, and obviously you talked to Caleb Cunningham too. So it all sounds like everything was a positive in that regard. But look, those are my two main things from Saturday. It's just Garrett Nussmeier's just gutsy performance, and then going on ahead and storming the field afterwards in a much deserved fashion.
Absolutely. So, to that angle, storming the field is good in that sense. I mean, who do you think is going to help you win football games more next year? The opinion of Preston Guy and Zack Nagy, right? Or the opinion of Caleb Cunningham and Damian Shanklin?
Precisely.
You know what I mean? So it's like, we can discuss this all you want. Just tell your boomer grandpa the kids love it. All right. Now, let me get the flip side of this argument, because I want to be fair and objective to both sides here. LSU has to give $250,000 to Ole Miss. Now, someone joked that they should give them to Ole Miss's medical team, so they can help all these injuries. And I thought that was hilarious. But, you're giving money to the university. I promise you, one way or another, whether it's official or not, that $250K is going to find a way in their NIL collective. Because, okay, someone's going to say, well, 250 went to the university, right? But that means that donation that this billionaire was going to give to the, journalism school or whatever. Well, now the journalism school got their 250. Let's get some defensive linemen. You know what I mean? So there's two sides to this argument, and it's perfectly fine for you to just listen to both of these facts and determine for yourself. There's other arguments that more people have talked about, like kids have fun and you only get to do this once in a while, and how often do these win? And then there's other arguments of like who your program is, and you've heard all those already. I just wanted to throw some different angles that you maybe haven't thought of. We got a super chat here from Dane Bergeron, who's just a fantastic supporter of the show. Dane, I really cannot elaborate how much I appreciate you and your support. Ole Miss should have known better than to play in the south end zone in overtime. This is hollowed ground for LSU. Cannons tackle the goal line, stand in 59, Bert Davis 72. By the way, my dad talks about that Bert Davis one in 72, where the game had ended, right? There was an incompletion, and the clock showed 0, but then the ref said there's a fraction of a second left, and they came back and won it. All right, Dane, let me throw a counterpoint, because that is hilarious. You bring up all the memories, right? But I actually had a unique perspective in that during this game, during the fourth quarter, I stood in LSU's end zone, right, to see all that. It was deafening. I mean, that was an electric atmosphere. I mean, and I remember doing the same thing in 2014 against Bama, and that was a loud game that went to overtime. This was louder than that. Okay, this is probably a top 5 atmosphere that I had ever remembered at LSU. And then I went to the other side because I had to do Lane Kiffin's postgame presser, and I'm like, well, they're moving to the other side anyways. I'm gonna just move right next to where Lane Kiffin is going to do his presser. And the difference was noticeable. Now, obviously, both sides. It's Tiger Stadium on Saturday night, and it's as loud as it gets. But that student section side, man, I would. It's got to be 10 decibels quieter on the other side. Those students do not play around when it's a serious game. Okay, UAB, you best believe none of them are there after halftime. But for this game, they brought it. Boy, did they bring it. So, I would have. I get great references, Dane. Great, and by the way, great knowledge to be able to pull all that, man. Probably not too many dudes can just pull that off the tip of their tongue like you. But I think Blade made the right call, being the guy on the field doing it. Anyways, let's get to some comments here. Let's see here. We got some sass 805 Ira. Look, man. Okay. Come on.
I saw that earlier too.
Come on, Mike. Get out of here, bro. I know you're probably. Oh my God. Show is about like the offense last week, a little late showing up. Oh, bro. I mean, come on. The offense was about like 55 minutes late to showing up. Okay. We were like 5. Okay. Let's see here. All right, Carl with an interesting comment. And by the way, I was one of like 7 reporters in Lane Kiffin's presser. I don't know what it is with Ole Miss media, but they don't travel apparently.
I noticed that. I was kind of surprised.
It was pretty small. Pretty small media crowd there. I think Lane was overdoing it on Coke after the game. All right, we talking Coca-Cola? Or we're
talking Coca-Cola.
I mean, it's Joey Freshwater. You never know with him. I think he should have done more Coca-Cola because he was quiet. He talked like this, except for I didn't have a microphone. I was using my shotgun mic on my camera and could barely hear his answers. I'll tell you what, I asked him 2 questions he didn't want to answer. Oh, I could tell you. And did you get a chance to watch his full? It was only 7 minutes.
They just bland answers. Life sucked out of them. Jackson Dart. I mean,
he was worse.
The memes like calling him like Anakin Skywalker. Like, yeah, like that the hoodie on.
Oh, that's hilarious! Look at you with a Star Wars reference. So cultured, my guy.
Yep. I had to do what I had to do. It just a defeating look for Lane Kiffin, Jackson Dart, etc. So yeah. Brutal.
It was brutal. He was, and he didn't want to answer my question about the environment, probably because he didn't want to give fuel to, be one of those coaches that gets quoted for the next 50 years on Tiger Stadium. But, he tried to be, if you think about it, I'm doing my job as a reporter asking it, of course, but he's doing his job as a coach to kind of skate a thin line of don't give him locker room material, but also don't give him material that's going to end up on a bulletin board on their locker room boasting how good their stadium is for the next 50 years. But he didn't want to answer it. I think he was a little upset, but kudos to him for being respectful and not chewing me out. And then I asked him about LSU's defense, if it had improved. And he's like, well, obviously it's improved, but kept on talking about how they screwed up. Man, he felt like he should have won that game. It was very
like they put themselves in position in every single way to win that game. They beat themselves. I mean, obviously LSU came in and made some fantastic plays down the stretch, but for Ole Miss to only, it might have been 10 points or something, and they were in the red zone like 4 times in the first half or something like that. Don't quote me on those numbers, but what I'm trying to get at is the lack of just execution is probably what I'm looking for there. The lack of execution from Ole Miss in the first half, something that jumped off the page to me. I think they had put themselves in position to at least have 21, 24 points in the first 2 quarters, and they couldn't really get much rolling. So, yeah, I completely understand where he's coming from, where he says he felt that they should have won that game, but obviously they couldn't get it done in crunch time, and that was where Garrett Nussmeier kind of clicked on all cylinders.
It was just nuts because when the game really mattered, LSU turned it on in a big kind of way. And by the way, it wasn't high percentage plays. Did that ever cross your mind that the plays they made were very low percentage plays, but they made them? That's a level of clutch, Gene. And by the way, this is Nussmeier's second big clutch drive, where in the ball game against Wisconsin, he led, was it a 98-yard drive to win the game against Wisconsin?
Yep.
I mean, Nussmeier, he's the son of a coach, and I had a good conversation with Doug Nussmeier during fall camp. We just kind of sat there and critiqued the game together, and you can tell he's got ice in his veins, and he was raised that way from an early age to, hey, son, you're going to get punched in the mouth, and you got to focus, and I love that, man. In fact, I told people my favorite play of Nussmeier's was the third down scramble, because
unreal.
It's not
in that play.
Yeah. And that's not his strength. That's not what he does. It's not what's going to get him drafted. It's nothing. It's not even something that he would really want on his highlight reel, because that's not who he is and his identity as an athlete. But that's what was needed to win the game, because there was nobody open and he knew not to slide. Okay. And I best believe he's sliding most of the time, but he had the awareness to see there's the chain. I got to fight for this. And the boy fought. He looked like Rocky Balboa in the, what is it? The 9th round for boxing, man. I mean, just beat up, bloody face.
I'm glad you said that. Not to cut you off, but I'm glad you said that, because in the post-game presser, I mean, it looked like he had 2 black eyes. Obviously, he could have been absolutely gassed and just exhausted, but it looked like he had 2 black eyes. Like, this is a guy who was in a heavyweight battle and obviously came out and won. I mean, look, Preston, when I look at the plays that he made down the stretch, like that fourth quarter, that fourth quarter 2-minute drive, I've watched it 3-4 times now, and every single time I'm blown away. There's the pocket awareness to step up and slide on that touchdown throw that he threw, slide to the left in the pocket on that touchdown to Aaron Anderson.
And the anticipation.
I mean, you always talk about players and quarterbacks and their ability to throw receivers open. Brian Kelly talked about that today. Aaron Anderson was not open on that play. Wilson Alexander had a really good freeze frame of that throw that he posted today, or maybe it was last night, and basically just showing how Aaron Anderson was toppled. Like, there was a guy on top.
You know what's crazy? I saw the same screenshot, and I had trouble figuring out what throw it was.
Unreal.
I didn't. Aaron, you literally cannot see Aaron Anderson in the screenshot because of how covered he is. And I went back and watched the play on ESPN because it was the replay angle. Yeah. And oh my God, that's it. It's funny how often you miss that kind of stuff when you're at the game because you're not watching the broadcast. That's big time, man. So I'm glad Nussmeier's getting some love, because it was an objectively bad game. A lot of receivers were out. I'm not giving him an excuse, but he played poorly in this football game. He had a bonehead interception. He had multiple picks, but and he completed less than 50% of his passes. But by God, when the game was on the line, he looked unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I love that he's not getting trashed on, because if they hadn't gotten the win, he would be getting trashed on. So, good for him. Not high percentage throws, made some gutsy plays, showed some real NFL promise. Very impressive drive for him. I would say it was the most impressive drive I've ever seen from a quarterback in recent history years. But the drive nobody talks about is that Jaden Daniels drive in Florida State, his first ever game for LSU, where he drove it down with 60 seconds to tie the game, but then the kicker misses the extra point, or it's blocked.
It's such a slept-on clutch player, in my opinion. I feel like he just continued to make those plays time and time again. But coming back real quick, I was like, scrolling through Twitter today and looking what the NFL analysts have to say and stuff, and they were talking about Garrett Nussmeier, and Jim Nagy was one of the guys, the Senior Bowl kind of
cousin of yours, right?
Apparently, everybody wants to say that. He said that basically he believed that Nussmeier had one of the highest ceilings in the draft. Him and Dane Brugler, which is the athletic scout guy. They were talking about just his ceiling, and they pulled out a pro comparison to me that I want to see what you think about. I don't know if you saw it. Tony Romo.
Ooh.
I want to know what your thoughts are on that comparison as a whole.
Well, Tony Romo could move in the pocket very well, if you remember that right. And Tony Romo also had a lot of similar interceptions that Nussmeier would have. Yeah. I don't know, a lot of Tony Romo's like suckiness, if you can say that about, we're talking about a guy who was in the top half of NFL starters for 10 years, right?
Right.
But of course he got joked on because he was the quarterback of the Cowboys so much. But a lot of his quote suckiness, if you look at it, a lot of the film, a lot of times is like, it was just madness that would happen to Tony Romo. I like that comp because he's got a good, lively arm, enough mobility to survive, really good at working the pocket. I would like to think that Nussmeier has probably a little more, just a tiny bit more whip and zip, like ball velocity is what I'm trying to get at than Tony Romo. Maybe that's just recency bias coming in and talking, but that's a good one, man. And the more
I liked it too.
Similar height, you know what I mean? They're both like 6'2" ish, right? Yeah, man. I like it a lot. Let's get to some comments here. Andy Whitaker, by the way, can we spend a couple minutes to publicly scrutinize Dylan Sin?
The floor is yours. I will mute myself, and I will let you take that in whatever direction.
It's kind of my thing, isn't it? All right. Dylan Sin is a reporter who covers Notre Dame. I can't even remember the name of the newspaper, and I don't care, but he's also an AP voter. And let me tell you, the way these AP voter things work, for better or for worse, is they give it to the news organization, right? So if they give it to the Advocate gets to pick who it goes to. Last year it was Scott Rabelais because they knew Leah Van was moving on. Before that, it was Leah Van. Now it's Cokie Riley doing it, right? And that's part of getting hired at these jobs is you will be obligated to be an AP voter. So, of course, you get guys like him who just get the job. They're a sports writer, but, you have to wonder what the qualifications are. I don't know what his previous qualifications were, and I don't care because last week he had LSU unranked, which I thought was, okay, LSU's a flawed football team, but they're 4-1 with a win on the road at South Carolina, and they beat UCLA by 20-plus points, right? Unranked? Unranked. Come on, man, really? And by the way, he had no problem ranking his Notre Dame team, which lost to Northern Illinois, who is toe cheese. Get out of here, Dylan Sin. And then, so of course, I did my thing as I do. I stir the pot a little on Twitter, and I put him out there. Hey, man, are you standing by this comment that LSU is not a good football team? His words, direct quote from Twitter. LSU is not good at football, and LSU doesn't deserve to be ranked, or are you ready to change your mind? And his reply to me was, LSU was once a proud program, and now they're bragging about beating an unserious Lane Kiffin team. Bro, look at your own Twitter poll, your own AP ballot, not even a Twitter poll, AP ballot from a week ago, man. And you've got Ole Miss at number 6. So it must have not been so obviously an unserious Ole Miss team until LSU got the win. Man, I have to wonder with some of these guys. I don't know how long he's been on the Notre Dame beat. I don't know what his background is. I don't care because it's obviously not worth my time researching. But you have to wonder if some of that is just BK hate from a Notre Dame reporter, because that is a hot garbage take. And old boy took an all-time ratio. Okay. I mean, an all-timer ratio, man. I mean, he's probably got 250,000 people and couldn't find a couple dozen people to like this post. But anyways, yes, that is my public scrutiny.
You get out of your, I was about to ask you get out of your system.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, look, man, I get it out of my system on Twitter. I actually try to be a little more clean and cut on this show when talking smack. And I don't like publicly screaming and ranting. And look, I get some people like that. There's some people who are really good at it, and there's some people who enjoy listening to that. I try to do a different angle, but for this guy, he can have a little hint of it, right?
Valid.
Woo! Good question here from Jeremy Franks. Do you think Garrett Nussmeier might make it to New York? That's a very interesting question. How many? He's 18 touchdowns. Is that right?
Yep. 18
touchdowns. We're about halfway through the season, so that projects out to just under 40 for the year. That sounds a little low now that I'm thinking about it. Hold up. Nussmeier stats. Let's see here. I just want to double check this because 36 would probably put him a little. No, 18. That's right. 18 and 6 interceptions, by the way. So that could hold him back a little bit if that projects out. If he finishes with 12 interceptions, that could be problematic. Okay. But I'm going to say this, the way he's playing, understand LSU does have a struggling running attack, and teams that struggle to run the ball struggle to punch it in the end zone, and they have to turn to a passing game to get touchdowns, so his touchdowns will be fluffed through the year, right? That will go heavily in his favor. LSU, he's going to have plenty of signature moments. It's about how he looks in those moments. And look, here's the fact of the matter from this weekend, guys. Okay, probably the majority of people watching tuned in after that Oregon-Ohio State game and only watched him dominate the game. I say dominate. Did you know he went 4 for 11 on that final drive?
Yeah, like, I mean,
the 4 were great.
That's my thing. Like, it was inefficient as all hell, but when they needed him the most, he did it. Like, the numbers obviously don't jump off the page to me in a positive way. Obviously, they jump off the page in a negative way. But yeah, I mean, look, if he can continue to have the clutch gene and continue to do what he's doing, and that's leading LSU to wins. I mean, if you play for the biggest brand in sports and you're showing out the way that he's showing out, I mean, I think that sets the table for you to get an invite to New York. Will he? Me personally, I don't think so, just because, like you alluded to, the interceptions and stuff and the lack of rushing attack. Like, yes, like they're going to be falling back on him a lot, which is why I feel like those interception numbers might go up just a little bit more, because he's going to be kind of relied upon to do more. So for me, I'm not sitting here expecting Garrett Nussmeier to go to New York, but to me, that's so irrelevant, because if you play the game to win games and you play the game to become a national title contender, and Garrett Nussmeier is putting LSU in that position right now. So as long as he keeps playing the way that he's playing right now, LSU will be just fine. I'm just not quite sure his numbers will be that of a Heisman finalist. It is what I'm trying to
I think he's a couple steps away right now. But
yeah, I agree with that.
Is it possible? He's got an opportunity to do it. He's built a foundation that's good enough to build off of. If he improves a little bit and LSU continues to win games, he has to be in the playoffs. But yeah, there's a real chance of that. Guys, we've got a great show going on here tonight. I'm going to take a quick break for ads real quick, but we'll come back and we'll get to more of your comments. In fact, y'all's comments have been so good tonight. I'm just going to keep on going down those and see which, if any of those, aren't touched on my checklist of items to get to tonight. But before we do all that, of course, let's take a second. I'm going to talk to y'all about Rejuveme, who's a new sponsor of the show. Very happy to have them on. They got me that cool little sign behind me, so appreciate them. So let's hear from them, and I'll be right back.
At Rejuveme, we specialize in medically monitored hormone and weight loss therapy, giving you the energy you need for all life's challenges. Let us be your age-defying clinic. Restore me, refuel me, Rejuveme. RejuvemeMedical.com.
Looking to rejuvenate your health? Try Rejuveme Medical. Their expert team offers GLP-1 medications for weight loss and wellness. Feel your best with Rejuveme. Visit RejuvemeMedical.com today. And guys, really excited about this sponsor we have on all of our shows this year. All TigerBait shows are proudly brought to you by Struby Steak and Seafood. Of course, guys, they're located on 107 3rd Street in downtown Baton Rouge. Struby's prides itself on providing a 5-star dining experience for a reasonable price. Struby's is locally owned with ownership in building every day, taking a level of pride in its food and service you're just not going to see from any corporate establishment. Struby's features a full menu of specialty meats, including USDA Prime Black Angus steaks, 100% certified Wagyu New York strip. And for those looking for something outside of red meat, of course, they have items such as the dry-aged pork chop, black truffle lobster pasta, redfish, and plenty more. Book your reservation online tonight at strubys.com. Make sure to let them know that TigerBait sent you in. And guys, I cannot tell you how good that steak is. I'm looking forward to getting back in again, man. I mean, that Wagyu I had was the best I've ever had. I can't wait to get back in. I don't know about you, Zach.
I had the opportunity to sit down with Scarborough and Preston and eat a good meal over there. And like I've said a couple times on the show, I'm a New Orleans kid. I'm a New Orleans baby, and so I take food seriously. Can certainly tell you that Struby's lived up to the hype. That was some really good food that we had that day. I'll tell you, I had the crawfish mac. I had a nice steak.
Oh, crawfish mac! I forgot you got that.
Yeah, I made sure to get a little. I'm a New Orleans kid, so any type of seafood that I can get my hands on, even if it's crawfish mac and cheese, I'm going to do what I can. And that food lived up to the hype. So anybody who can try to make their way over to Struby's, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I'll tell you that much.
And guys, of course, we're brought to you our title sponsors, Celebrity Theaters, who makes everything we do possible this year. Guys, they've got weekday specials. They've got Monday, $5 admission for patrons over the age of 55, discounted movie tickets and concessions for all. Wednesday, they've got their half-priced arcade and $5 movie tickets after 5 p.m. for college students. And Thursday is Thursday, where they have discounted beer, wine, and frozen drinks after 5 p.m. All righty, guys. Thank y'all for bearing with us. Of course, those pay our bills and make the show possible, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate anybody for supporting our sponsors and letting a manager, owner, whomever you interact with know, where you came from. We really do try to do a good job of picking out good sponsors that we can trust to take good care of you and your needs. Let's see here. Andy Whitaker. I don't agree with Kiffin saying we should have won that game. LSU shot themselves in the foot a lot too. LSU kicked 4 field goals. There were a lot of chances for LSU to go up. It's an interesting angle. I'm going to let Zack tackle that one first. Zack, what's your thoughts on that?
I like that. I think it was an ugly first half of the game. I think Ole Miss didn't capitalize on their opportunities, and I don't think LSU did either. And I think it was going to ultimately come down to who got the ball last. And look, LSU had the opportunity to get the ball last in regulation, send it to OT, and then maximize their chance when they needed to most. So I think that's a fair assessment there when you look at the opportunities that LSU missed out on. And you want to say shot themselves in the foot. I completely agree with that. So there's no kind of pushback from me on that. I think LSU didn't make the most of their chances once they got into Ole Miss territory, and I don't think Ole Miss did the same once they got to LSU territory. So it was kind of the battle of kind of the mis-execution, if that's even a word. And ultimately now you move on. LSU got the ball last, capitalized, and won the game. So that was how it was going to be, and LSU was on the positive end of it.
I think that's well said. Guys, I'm telling you, we've got to get a little better running the ball and keep throwing so much. I live here in Arkansas, and these Hogs fans raise the intensity for this game. Okay, first off, this is Arkansas's biggest rivalry. Okay, they do take this more seriously than LSU, and that's why I think the rivalry's been a little closer than it should have been over the years. So make no mistake, you're spot on, Ryan. I mean, that they will bring high levels of intensity, and Trey'Dez Green is going to be a tough quarterback to stop. Now, throwing the ball this year, he's been a little hit and miss. He's only got 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, thrown for about 1,500 yards in 6 games. So you kind of get, he's a little sporadic throwing the ball, but he's an elite runner. Now, mind you, after sacks, he only averages about 4 yards per carry. So, it's not like he's just completely busting it open like Jane Daniels was, but still a dynamic runner that you have to account for. And that could certainly give this team some trouble. But, you mentioned running the ball. Guys, I actually have a new bar of expectations for this team after this game against Ole Miss on Saturday night, because I've been telling people all year, if this team's going to compete for the playoffs, it's going to be because this running game started to take off. They've already got an elite passing game, and they really do have the pieces on offense to be successful. They just don't. And I said the defense doesn't have the pieces to be successful. Guys, Blake Baker coached one hell of a game this weekend, and that's the best I've seen the defense play since 2022, probably since 2019, but certainly, I mean, yeah, I still think, and by the way, they didn't develop the running game, and they still won the game. If you told me LSU was running the ball 24 times for 80 yards, I would say they're taking a big fat L, baby. Taking a big fat L. But the defense stepped up in a colossal way, and they didn't do it with young players either. They rolled mostly veteran guys out there who had their struggles and just performed. They just did it. I don't know how, but this coaching staff has this defense improving a lot. So I'm still with you on that running game. I mean, I think that the running game took a big step back because Caden Durham wasn't full speed. I mean, 2 dislocated toes. Did you get an impression?
I'm going to agree with that. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm going to agree with that just because, look, I'm not sitting here saying that I expected Caden Durham to come out and have this fantastic game or anything. I mean, I did, but I didn't expect him to go out for 100+ yards because his foot's still a little banged up. But I obviously expected a stride in the right direction still at the end of the day, not 5 steps back. And for me, like you said, 24 carries for 80 yards is something that I wouldn't have expected. I didn't think they would have run the ball 24 times, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. But I think that running game needs to get more balanced. I think one thing that I say time and time again is diversifying the playbook creativity, even if that means putting Xavier Thomas damn near in the running back slot. So there's a bunch of different things that I think Joe Sloan can do to continue to kind of have that playbook get a little bit more diverse. We haven't seen a lot of Caleb Jackson. We haven't seen a lot of him going on, getting him involved in the screen game. So there's things that you can do in the backfield to open up the game, even if it's not kind of running the ball down the gut.
Andy Whitaker, the AP poll needs to be replaced by a computer. It's 2024 and we have AI. Screw these. Bro, did you just suggest the BCS? I don't think that's going to go the way you think it's going to go, Andy. I think people are going to be mad. By the way, did y'all know Mike Scarborough is still an avid supporter of the BCS? He looks at it. He says the BCS never got it wrong. And I
was a youngin, so I'll refrain from my comments.
Hold up, 2013. You were, I mean, you were watching sports at that time. I mean, you were probably in high school, right?
Yeah, but I didn't have the analytic perspective that I have now when it comes down to it. But
here's the deal. You are probably too young to remember 03 and the drama that went down with, let me tell you, when Oklahoma lost to Kansas State, the conventional wisdom, by the way, was 35-7. I mean, Jason White and company, they got blasted by Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. So, the pollsters put USC number 1, LSU number 2, right? And everybody had to wait on the computers. The amount of anxiety. LSU hadn't played in a national championship in 45 seasons at that point.
That's crazy.
The amount of anxiety that LSU fans had when we had to wait on a gosh darn computer to determine our fate. 3 years before, we were all freaking out about Y2K. And now that same Y2K computer has to determine if we get a natty or not. It was kind of a meltdown. Okay. And if that gosh darn computer had come out and given the fate to LSU that it gave to USC, dude, the meltdown would have been colossal. Tiger droppings, it wouldn't be here today. It would have died. It would have exploded, man. Like, I don't know that that's the right idea, my guy. But I definitely get what you're saying. All I can tell you is just be thankful that the AP poll has zero to do with who makes the playoff. Let's see here. All right. I'm going to tell you probably not a real scoop here before I even read this, Cole, but we'll give you our best. Preston, Zack, do either one of y'all have the real scoop on why Chris Hilton has been out for 6 weeks? I'm hearing something entirely different than injury. I've heard some whispers that it could be a mental reaction to the injury at this point. I mean, it's definitely an injury. It's just about, is he mentally recovered from it? Don't know how valid that is, but I've heard some whispers of that, and it's a strange situation because, like, what injury are you going to be questionable and or probable for half a season?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's been day to day since the end of August, and obviously he's being classified as a bone bruise right now, and I'm not going to get skeptical on anything else other than that. Obviously, there are some things that some mental hurdles that need to come back from an injury. Obviously, it's tough. I've hurt my knee before, and trying to get back to full speed is a challenge in itself. So when I look at it, like, maybe we're looking at Chris, who's trying to get kind of acclimated to the game, both physically and mentally. If it is still that bone bruise that they were classifying it at, and nothing more than that, because obviously bone bruises can become stress fractures and other things can kind of ripple down. There can be a rippling effect. But if we're going to sit there and stick with the bone bruise kind of diagnosis for now, look, I think there's some challenges here. All injuries heal differently. Brian Kelly alluded to that on the SEC teleconference last Wednesday, and then kind of talking about how unusual of an injury it is and how unusual of a healing process it's been. So I think the world of Chris Hilton. I think this is a guy who could unlock a whole new dimension to this LSU offense. I think he's fantastic. He'll open up the passing game to allow Nussmeier to go over the top. But obviously, you want to wait till he's 100%. And Brian Kelly said that on several different occasions. I'm not going to sit here and harp on an injury to a guy right now, but I think Hilton can and will unlock a new dimension to the offense once he's back in the fold. Kelly's talked about him getting to 100% before he steps on the field.
Yeah.
And if that means both mentally and physically, then so be it. Because now you're adding a guy like Trey'Dez Green into the mix, who's a 6'7", 245-pound monster who can line up in the slot and go up and get it because he has those basketball genes as well in his system. He has the vertical to go up and get it. He's unguardable. So if you need to throw Trey'Dez Green in the mix right now and allow him to unlock a new dimension of the offense and wait until Chris Hilton's 100% mentally and physically, then so be it. But I still think when it's all said and done, Hilton's going to come back in, get 100%, and start to unlock a new element.
I'm putting this up here because you're touching on it literally right. I had it kind of in my queue of, boy, great comments tonight. Really insightful, good stuff that gives us a lot of talking points tonight. I literally cannot make it to the end of the chat because it's like, oh gosh, there's another one I should put up. Yes, the receiver room is very hurt. Kyle Parker's done for the season. Chris Hilton, man, I'm telling you, Chris Hilton, don't expect anything out of him. If you get something out of him, great. But at this point, I don't know. He's kind of in that Trevante Valentine category of you keep on hearing about him, but you never see him on the field. That's all I can tell you to expect is that kind of stuff with him.
Let me ask you this, like, not to cut you off again, sorry, but like when you're looking at the bigger picture of this receiver room, and then you look at the healthy bodies that you do have, and I'm going to get on Trey'Dez Green too in a second, but when you look at the bigger picture of it all, obviously you have a Kyron Lacey, Aaron Anderson, Mason Taylor as a pass catcher, Xavier Thomas, who's obviously been more effective as a special teams guy and not necessarily in the receiver room.
I think, yeah.
Look, you have 3 healthy wide receivers per se. If we're going to talk on Anderson, Lacey, and Thomas, you have 3 healthy receivers there. Your next guy up, or the guy who should be next up, is Shelton Sampson. Yeah. And you knew exactly where I was going with that. And I think it's hard to look at a player like Sampson right now and not be relatively disappointed. I think this is a player who had all the upside in the world.
Yeah.
He has the intangibles. He's long, lanky, can go up and get it. Just there's so many things that it takes to become an effective player in the SEC, and we haven't quite seen that yet. I'm not saying the program is writing him off, but it almost seems like the writing's on the wall when you're going in and having a guy like Trey'Dez Green switch over to a wide receiver role. And even if it's not necessarily classified as a receiver, he's going to be working in the slot. He's going to be standing up. His bread and butter isn't as a blocker. So my question almost to you would be is, 1, have you written off a guy like Shelton Sampson yet? And 2, what are your overall thoughts on Trey'Dez Green being moved over to kind of like a tight end wide receiver kind of Swiss Army knife? Because I think that's his bread and butter, is being able to go up and get the rock. And I think for the LSU offense, I think, again, another term I've used, this will be the 3rd time I've said it, I think it unlocks a whole new dimension.
I'm not ready to write off Shelton Sampson, but the writing doesn't look good right now. Okay. You're 2 years in. You have every opportunity to shine right now.
Brian Thomas didn't necessarily flash until his 3rd year. I know that there were kind of glimmers of hope from Brian, but at the end of the day, I mean, BT didn't really hit his stride. He took time to develop as well. So maybe Shelton's in that same category?
Typically, as a receiver, at least by your sophomore year, you have something where you've shown a flash.
And you haven't quite seen that from Shelton yet.
I'm not saying consistently hitting 100-yard games. I'm just saying a flash, like where you're like, oh. Remember Jamar Chase as a freshman? That kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, he caught a handful of grabs, but you still were like, dang. Remember Justin Jefferson as a sophomore?
Yep.
You're like, dang, that guy's pretty good, but he just never really put it all together. Yes, it's normal for a receiver not to put it all together, but typically you would have seen a flash, and he's got every opportunity with as many guys. It's not like he's buried. Now you talk about the first 3 receivers. None of them are really a complete receiver. I think Kyron Lacey's the closest you got to that, but
they just complement each other so well. That's the thing for me. And again, I understand you don't have that Malik Neighbors, that Brian Thomas, that Kayshon Boutte in his prime. Well, emphasis on in his prime. I don't think you have that guy, but I just think they complement each other so well. Kyron's a guy who can go be a physical, go up and get it type of guy. Aaron Anderson can hit the crossing routes, the post routes, and be a speedster quick off the line of scrimmage. And you have a gadget guy like Xavier Thomas who can kind of make the plays in the backfield on shuffle passes, etc. Screens. Yeah. I think they complement each other well, but I understand where you're getting at. There's no elite guy in that room, and it opens up an opportunity for a guy like Shelton to shine, and we just haven't seen it.
Let's just be frank. LSU's a place where the standard has been set, where that's what you expect.
Yep.
with this state, that's the kind of guys you expect. So like a lot of these guys from most schools would be like, that's a really good receiving core. It's just not what LSU fans are used to seeing. And frankly, with the talent that this state consistently puts out, it's not where the receiver room should be for a coach like Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly should have a better receiving room than what he's got right now. But it's still pretty good. But Kyron Lacey's the closest you got to a complete receiver, so I'm not going to talk on him, but he does have times, stretches in games where he disappears. Okay. Aaron Anderson is a smaller target with a small catch radius, and you have to be super accurate with him. And, sometimes his hands are suspect. I think he had 2 drops, one where it was very questionable, whether it was a drop or not. I believe it was that final drive, actually. I was on the field, so a lot of my memories of that are kind of shaky. Yeah, honest. It's just like all day, and I remember thinking like he got that, and then the other was just blatant. Okay, and by the way, Kyron Lacey has some issues where not as bad this year, but he does have some like the easy ones he'll drop every once in a while. And Xavion Thomas is a very serviceable number 3 receiver. Don't get me wrong, he's great as your Cadron Boone of this team. Okay, but he only catches the easy ones. I've noticed that like when he has to make a acrobatic adjustment to the ball, it's rarely pulled in. Okay. So I think he just is what he is, and he's a great tool and great weapon, but there's no receiver that's like, if you're a guy who's living up to the poise that we all think Shelton Sampson's potential was coming in, he should be held off the field for. You know what I'm saying? At least get a couple snaps. But we're not seeing that. But I do think Trey'Dez Green has shown that flash. Trey'Dez Green has shown that. He had 3 flipping snaps this weekend and got a touchdown on one of them. Do you know what a 33% touchdown rate on your snaps is like? My God. And by the way, he has 2 touchdowns this year. I think he has, is it 3 catches with 2 touchdowns?
Correct.
Okay, can we feed that guy the ball some more? He's shown
I get it. I completely hear where you're coming. Like my thing is, when it comes to Trey'Dez Green, I understand 3 catches, 2 touchdowns, fantastic. On paper, that looks phenomenal. But for me, when I want to mold this receiver room into something that could be special, and if you're going to include Trey'Dez Green into that, man, throw a damn fade route to him. Like allow him to do what he does best. Like I want to see a little bit more of Kamorian Pimpton in the red zone. I want to see a little bit more of Trey'Dez Green in the red zone. I know keeping it simple, but what is it like? KISS, like keep it simple.
Keep it simple, stupid,
I get it. Like you want to keep it simple and be effective. But in order for players like Kamorian Pimpton to hit his stride and players like Trey'Dez Green to hit their stride, you have to at times loft the ball up to them and allow them to do what they do best. I mean, I can count numerous times where Kamorian Pimpton went up and got the ball in fall camp. Numerous times where Trey'Dez Green went up and got the ball in fall camp. And obviously, SEC football in Death Valley at night and fall camp on a practice field on a hot August morning is completely different. But look, I want to see a little bit more of that. I want to see them continue to allow the guys to develop. And the only way to do that is to let Trey'Dez Green what he does do best. And I think that's go up and get the dang ball.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's useful. I mean, in any offensive situation. I mean, you cannot tell me, especially
look at Stephen Miller's comment. I didn't even see that until just now. Look at what he put at 8:53. I mean, yeah, like that's right on the money. That's exactly what I'm saying, Stephen. Like we talked about it time and time again, and it almost makes us look foolish because we've sat there and talked about these gadget plays that they have with Jelani Watkins, these plays that they have with Trey'Dez Green, Kamorian Pimpton, et cetera. Look, I mean, time and time again, I watched them do some special things during camp, and I haven't quite seen them unlock that part of the offense yet. It's early. We just reached the midway point of the year. It's still relatively early, but I think if they can do that long term, I think you're going to add different dimensions to the offense that'll make them more effective in the long haul. And that starts with a Kamorian Pimpton, Trey'Dez Green, even somebody like Jelani Watkins in a frail receiving room.
I have nothing to add to that. I mean, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Yeah, please. I'm begging. The opportunity is presenting itself. Okay, I understand you have a log jam at tight end.
Yeah.
And you've got a drought at wide receiver on probably one of your bottom 5 receiving cores in the last 15 years. Okay.
It's unique because I like Kylan Billiot. Like I think he's super polished, and I think the long-term potential is there for a guy like him. I think Jelani Watkins is a gadget guy who can do a lot of different things. Yeah. We're not going to talk about Kyle Parker, obviously, because he's injured. But when I was looking at breakout candidates towards the back end of SEC play, I had him circled as a guy who had the opportunity to do just that. His numbers don't jump off the page, but I think Kyle Parker as the guy, he could go over and be that guy to go over the top and get it when you have a Chris Hilton sideline. So look, Kyle Parker is a guy that I like long-term. Jelani Watkins is a guy, if you put 20 pounds on him, because he's going to need 20 pounds on him, I think he's going to be effective. Obviously, you don't want to put on too much weight to lose that speed, that track speed that he has, like we've seen with a guy like Caleb Jackson. But I think you have these serviceable key pieces that can develop and be fantastic in a Cortez Hankton system. But what you're alluding to and what I'm going to hit on here is, look, you want to find that elite level talent who can come in and take the top off, like Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Kayshon Boutte, et cetera. We can go on and on. The team doesn't have it right now, and I'm not sure if they have that over the next 2 years as well.
Absolutely. Guys, if you're enjoying the show tonight, please do us a favor and hit that like button. Smash like, beat Mike. We haven't done that in a while. Okay, get us some likes and let us get a dub over Mike once this year. Okay,
he's usually the one to post that.
I know they have, like, I think me and Zach probably have 15 years of coverage experience to their 55. Okay, but come on, bro, give us some love. You know what I'm saying? Share it to your Twitter pages, Facebooks, all that good stuff. It helps with our algorithms, which of course helps us pay our bills. So I genuinely appreciate your support. And as simple as hitting a click on the like button, you know, and I know some people watch on their TV or whatever. It's not easy to do, but if you could take the time out of your day to do it, I'd be highly appreciated. I got our final ad segment of the night before we go out and touch on a few points, make our game prediction, all that jazz. And we'll try to squeeze in some comments as well. But guys, I really got to thank Willy Wonka's World for an LSU fan. Of course, we're talking about Alumni Hall. LSU Tiger fans, I'm going to tell you the best place to get all your officially licensed LSU gear. It's Alumni Hall, and it's not even close. They're your ultimate shopping destination for LSU fans. They've got it all. The all-new Nike gear, Champion, Johnny O, Onward Reserve, Peter Millar, Southern Tide. They've got it, man. They've got nose polos you've been looking for, hats, Yeti, and of course, LSU gear coming in daily. Shop at their store at Perkins Row or go online anytime at alumnihall.com. Guys, we got the discount code for you, TigerBait, all one word, in store or in person, TigerBait, to get 10% off your purchase. So I'm glad I can take care of you. Just let them know TigerBait sent you in. I've been talking to their GM, great guy. I'm sure he'd be loved to hear that TigerBait sent you in. They've got the largest selection of LSU Tiger gear, guys. They've got the Nike Pegasus shoes, so make sure to get that. And remember, free shipping on all orders over $99. Let's hear from Genesis of Lafayette real quick. We'll be right back after we hear from them. Where is that?
Drive-in style and luxury with a new Genesis from Genesis of Lafayette. Buy a 2023 Genesis G70 3.3T Sport Prestige Executive Demo and pay only $39,870. Buy a new 2025 GV70 and take $2,000 off the MSRP with value owner, competitive only incentive, plus finance for 2.99% APR for 60 months or 3.99% APR for 72 months. Don't forget to start your shopping online by visiting genesisoflafayette.com.
Guys, we all know how competitive the car industry is. I can tell you 3% rate in this market with cars priced like that under MSRP. It's been a long time since we've seen deals on new cars like that, guys. There's a reason they sell more Genesis than any other dealer in Louisiana. For the very best buyer experience of a new luxury SUV or sedan, call them toll free to set up your test drive, 877-856-2961, and tell them TigerBait sent you in. And guys, another place I'm super happy to add to our lineup here, because I've been there myself. I take my boy there, get their dream cake there, their carrot cake there, whether it's a dessert or sandwich. I know this place is going to take care of y'all. And it means a lot to me that they do. Guys, we're so proud to add them to our lineup of sponsors for this football season. They're located on 100 Lafayette Street in downtown Baton Rouge. Capital City Grill is your ideal lunch and dinner stop for a casual dining experience. Capital City Grill features a variety of sandwiches, burgers, seafood pastas, steaks, and more, with everything priced at $30 or below for an affordable experience. Don't forget to celebrate a Tigers win at their Sunday morning brunch, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Book your reservation online at capitalcitygrill.net. Make sure to let them know that TigerBait sent them in. The guys went there just the other day with my little boy, and let me tell you, he loved it. I loved it. It was a big win for everybody. And guys, final ad of the night, guys, I got to tell y'all about Celebrity Theaters. If you're looking for a corporate event or classroom party, anything of the sort, make sure to book your event at Celebrity Theaters. They've got 8 to 10 auditoriums based on which location you're looking at. If you're looking to book a birthday package, they've got you taken care of for children of all ages. So if you want to go book your event, go to celebritytheaters.com/events or send them an email, events@celebritytheaters.com. All righty. All right. Let's I got to talk to y'all about the impact of Death Valley and Saturday night, because we all talk about it being a crazy atmosphere, but I always find it funny when, I mean, almost anybody you know can tell you that Saturday night in Death Valley is a scary place, right? But when there's data to support the well-known nomenclature of that, it's almost like just a phrase, you know, like it's like saying it never rains in Death Valley, right? Or
Run the clip. You should let
I
them
should run
get
the
a taste.
All right. Let me do this then real quick. Present,
because the clip gives a good.
And guys, I put this on Twitter.
Mhm.
God, I hope our show does not like take a hit here. I'm just gonna put this on here, and I'm gonna show you what I mean, and then I'm gonna back it up with data. This was me on the field for the final play. There's a must find, man.
So crazy.
Remove it before we get the copyright strike there.
Yep. Get it all. I didn't hear the music.
Well, it's funny to me how sensitive YouTube can be with that stuff. I might upload it to my own personal YouTube page, but the TigerBait page is just too valuable to get strikes and stuff like that. But unbelievable atmosphere. And we talked about framing of the matchup in this game. Let me tell you, it played a huge role. You cannot tell me that Ole Miss team didn't look beat up and undisciplined all night long, like a team that had just played 2 SEC games, right? When SEC had played South Alabama in a bye. And then you add in Saturday night in Death Valley. I told y'all that might be worth 5.5 points collectively. I'm not so certain it wasn't worth more, like 7 or 8 on that night. It was absolutely bonkers. Shout out to you, the fans, for making that a special experience. It was also real fun for both me and Mike as we got to be interacting with the fans on the field with the game. How many were like, TigerBait, Preston, what's up? You know, it was funny. I actually had a lot of people asking who I was going to roast on Twitter after this one. I'm like, I guess that's kind of, I guess it's become my thing now. That's okay. You could have worse things in life. So it was great doing that. It was a great experience. LSU since 2000 moves on to 110-14 in Saturday night games in Death Valley. Do you know how freaking insane it is to have a 25-year stretch or 24-year stretch to have 14 losses on Saturday night? That win percentage is almost 900, guys. That's unbelievable in any context. If you were to give me any context for a game, if you were to say games where you were up by 14 points or more, and that was your record for it, that would be unbelievably good. Okay. To sit here and tell me just Saturday night home games, that's remarkable. That's remarkable. By the way, of those losses, the 14 losses, can you guess who 5 of them are from?
I think we all know the answer to that, unfortunately. I don't even want to hear it, but yeah, I think we all know.
Goat Saban. That's who. Okay. It took the greatest football coach in college football history to be the only coach in the last 25 years to have multiple Saturday night wins in Tiger Stadium since he took the gosh darn job. Okay. At LSU. Okay. That is remarkable. There are single digit losses Saturday night in Death Valley. So when you put up your stadium rankings and all that hoopla, okay, or, you know, look, save it. Unobjectively, I know I'm an LSU alum. I know I'm an LSU reporter. It's LSU and then anybody else. The conversation starts and ends with LSU at that number one spot. It's not particularly close. And Saturday night was an encapsulation of all of that. So all of you, the fans who were there, take a bow. I mean, straight up, you guys deserve one for what a special atmosphere you built on Saturday night. LSU plays a game this weekend, and it's got potential to be a real letdown, man. You know, what are your thoughts on LSU going to Arkansas? Tough quarterback, Bobby Petrino offense, and I hear he's not allowed to have interns anymore, so he should be a lot more focused than he was on his last go around at Arkansas. Thoughts on this game? Do you think LSU takes care of business?
I obviously know that the general narrative is going to be it's a trap game. LSU's coming off a big win. You're riding a high. You're going to have to come back down to earth eventually. Is that going to be this weekend? For me, I'm not necessarily going to classify it as a trap game. I understand the outside noise. I understand that Arkansas is coming off of a bye and LSU's coming off of an emotional victory, and you got a couple of receivers that are banged up, this and that. But at the end of the day, I think LSU's finally starting to click a little bit. Obviously, that rushing attack isn't there quite yet where we want to see it. We've alluded to that numerous times. But I think LSU can go out there in Fayetteville and handle business. I know it's a night game there, which kind of helps in LSU's favor, in my opinion. I understand that the atmosphere is going to be a little bit crazier and whatnot, but look, we've seen that they thrive in that pressure.
Sure.
So I think LSU can go out there and handle business, get the job done. I understand the outside noise, the trap game, and all the narratives that are coming with that. But I think LSU's finally starting to hit their stride, and Blake Baker's starting to dial up just game plan after game plan that is just master class after master class. And I think he's going to do the exact same thing this weekend and put the defense in position to be successful. Garrett Nussmeier is beginning to click. I don't think Garrett Nussmeier is going to play. He might. I don't think Garrett Nussmeier will play a worse game than he played on Saturday night. I'm not sure he does that for the rest. And when I say that, for the rest of the season is what I'm saying. I don't think he's going to play a worse game than that.
And Arkansas doesn't have as tough a defense as Ole Miss.
Precisely. Which is why I think Garrett Nussmeier and this offense have a chance to click. You play complementary football with a super talented defense that's emerging. I think you handle business in Fayetteville.
Yeah, and look, my first inclination was it's a game where LSU wins but doesn't cover. I might be afraid if it was on the road, if it was 102,321 of you crazy effers out there, but it's not. It's Arkansas. It's like 52,000. Okay. Whatever many state fit. Okay. And of course it's a tough place to play. Okay. But it's not Death Valley. All right. And I think LSU takes care of business. I think they're going in the right direction. That defense has me really thinking up. I told y'all 9-3 before the season. I feel very comfortable about 9-3, but I'm wondering if I might have aimed a little too low. Whereas a lot of people before this Ole Miss game were thinking, trust me, I heard some grumblings. So anyways, that's that. Before we head out, I got the best comment of the season. The best comment that we've had all year.
Oh, no.
It's not particularly close. This is the Death Valley of comments on the show. I invite anybody to try to top this.
Is it going to be what yeah.
Of course it never was anything else, Zach. Okay. Mm-hmm. Cole Adams, truth be told, I like you and Zach better than the older group. I'll just leave it at that. My guy, Cole Adams, come find me. I'm buying you a beer. I will buy you a beer if I ever see you in person, Cole. That's the best comment all season. And anybody who tops that comment this year also gets a beer from me. That's awesome. In fact, I'll give you a twofer because I haven't even read this, but you deserve a second one because clearly you're the best commenter on this gosh darn YouTube channel. Arkansas scares me this weekend. People don't realize how big a bi-weekly SEC physicality and recovery. Of course it should scare you, but I think LSU's the better team. And I think that should scare Arkansas. And I do think that I think it could get scary at times. Particularly that matchup with Taylon Green scares me a little bit, but he hasn't been a consistent passer this year. He does have the potential to rip open a big game, but LSU's pass rush, I think, is one that's going to force him into making mistakes, and he's already shown he's been prone to make mistakes, and he doesn't have enough productivity to counteract that like Nussmeier does. So I do think LSU takes care of business. I would say they wouldn't cover, but it's 2.5, so it's like, okay, it's not going to be a 2-point game, is it? I mean, I guess the last 4 have been like 3-point games or whatever,
Right.
but it's just so hard to win and cover at 2.5. There's such a small window. I would say they win by at least 3 or 4, but LSU wins by a score. Let's put it like that. So anyways, guys, with all that being said, I appreciate y'all for watching tonight. We're going to be back with our post-game show Saturday night after the game, about an hour after the game, as soon as we get our stories and interviews, all that uploaded. We don't like to be the show that's right after. We like to be the late night show. So y'all come join us for that. Mike and Buddy will be back here for the second best show during the week on TigerBait Live. That's per Cole Adams, of course. And you can go watch them, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get live notifications. Guys, we don't do too many shows. We do 3 shows a week during football season, 1 show a week during the off season. So you're not going to get inundated with notifications. Just turn them on. I promise you won't regret it. Everybody I talk to really appreciates that. Y'all hit like on the video if y'all enjoyed watching what you watched tonight. Okay. And y'all make sure to give Zack a follow. Zack's been doing some real good work, especially on his Twitter recently, man. I mean, he's got some stuff that blows up quite a bit. And let me tell you, it's not just who's retweeting who is retweeting your stuff. It gets really impressive every week. It's like almost every time you tweet about a player, it's like that player's retweeting you. Did I see Swinson retweeted you, or I'm thinking somebody else this week? I don't know.
It might have been. I think it was.
Oh, gosh darn it. We're trying to get off air and we got a super chat. Y'all go follow Zack. He's good people, man. I'm on Twitter at PGuy77. If you want to see the roasting of Dylan Sin we talked about earlier with an all-time ratio, y'all go get that. Got a better comment. Paul Skeens convinced the best Ole Miss baseball commit to decommit. All right, I got a good video of Paul Skeens hyping up the fans. What's hilarious is they put Paul Skeens on the big board, and immediately after that, LSU gets a sack to end the game. They get a 3 and out on offense, forcing a 57-yard field goal in overtime, which is just bonkers to me. And you talk about Ole Miss being the better team and should have won. Well, you didn't look very good on that drive, did you? And then one play later, I mean, it was just utter dominance from Paul Skeens on screen to end of game. That was sheer collective dominance. So shout out to Paul Skeens. Can you talk about the baseball commit real briefly? I don't know much about him except for he's the number 1 player in Louisiana. He was committed to Ole Miss and he decommitted. Is that right?
I mean, Paul Skeens was on the sidelines talking and kind of chatting up with the recruits, whether it was football, baseball, you name it. Obviously, we got the comment here kind of alluding to that. And number 1 right-handed pitcher in the state of Louisiana who was verbally committed to Ole Miss backed off of his pledge less than 48 hours ago. And who knows if LSU can start trending in the right direction there, but it appears that would be the case. So we'll see what happens with his recruitment down the stretch. But yeah, Paul Skeens was sitting there chopping it up with a lot of the guys, and we will try to see if the rippling effect occurs on the recruiting trail.
More importantly, he was chopping it up with Livy Dunn, which, I mean, he's got some good pitches. That might be his best one. Anyways, guys, I appreciate y'all for watching tonight. We've been trying to do an outro here for like 5 minutes, but I appreciate y'all as always. Y'all don't know how much y'all mean to me. So y'all have a great night. Like and follow the show if you enjoyed it. Okay.